Hey, how you doing? Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to another time here. Welcome to another time at the book club. That's what I get to do Sunday afternoon at 2 p.m. And I get to pretty much read a book and learn from the book and share from the book and learn together, do life together through the book. And we're presently on our eighth book, The Gold Mine Effect. That's what we're presently reading. And it's a book by Rasmus Ankersen, and it's on high performance. That's what we started the year 2025 with. Strange enough, we're in our fourth month, 4 months doing it with the short breaks when I traveled, and we ain't gonna finish it this month. Probably gonna take us to next month. So it's probably gonna be first 5 months of the year reading the book. And I've enjoyed it. I've learned from it. I'm growing from it. I just hope everyone else is able to take something from the book called Soul. I hope so. It's all about high performance. It's all about producing more, being more effective in whatever it is that we do or we're in. That's what we've been sharing this last 4 months. We're presently in chapter um 6, and we did the first part of chapter 6 last week, and hopefully today we'll finish the second part of chapter 6, and it's all just talking about leadership. The whole book is about Rasmus visiting some places which are known for high performance. Brazil, high performance in soccer. Russia, high performance in lawn tennis. South Korea, high performance in golf. Ethiopia, Kenya, high performance in long distance running, and being able to find out what it is that marks these people out. And this chapter pretty much it's looking at the philosophy of the people that are the leaders in those places. What was it about them that marked those places out for high performance? High performance measured by, the number of Olympic medals they got, number of people in the top ranking in those different fields in golf, in lawn tennis, in soccer. So what was it about the people that led in those gold mines, those places that made a difference? That's what we're pretty much looking at in this chapter. It's titled The Godfathers, that the leaders, the icons in those places. What was it about their philosophy, way of doing things that marked them out? Pretty much their leadership styles, as it were, in those places. I'm going to do a quick run of what we did last week, then we'll take it up from there. All right, I'm sure those of you on YouTube, on my blogging site, you can see my slides here. I pretty much gone to where we supposed to start today. But since I wanted to run through what we did last week so as to link it here, let me just do a quick run through. And the quote pretty much that runs through this whole chapter is one by Paul Evans, is organizational behavioral professor, and he says effectiveness is inherently paradoxical, right? Effectiveness is the ability to use various elements which are sometimes seemingly opposing to one another, to bring out the best effect in anything that we're doing. Effectiveness is not a one-way traffic. It's been able to use a little of this and a little of that to get the whole. It's that place where the Bible says one will put to flight 1,000, but two will put to flight 10,000. You know, in the Chinese philosophy, it's called the yin and the yang. Two seemingly opposing principles that, when used together, complement, supplement, enforce, reinforce one another. Paul Evans says, they could look paradoxical, but is to be effective, a leader must possess the attributes that are contradictory, even mutually exclusive, but yet being able to make them work by using them in the right amount, in the right way, in the right circumstance to the right persons. That's how you get effectiveness. It's not a one-way traffic. That's why a lot of people are not effective. That's why a lot of people, don't break through in their area of life, because they don't think. thinking is the ability to use things that seem contradictory but reinforce one another. You know, uh, it's just like in soup. If you put oil and water together, they don't mix. But when you add heat to it, it makes you get a soup. Someone just looking at oil and water might think you can't get anything good out of it. Yeah, you can. All you need to do is add heat to it, you know. But let's quickly run through the other things we looked at last week. So pretty much looked at what the dog into what it meant, to be paradoxical from a leadership standpoint. We said it's the ability to be able to build close relationship, but yet be able to keep a suitable distance. In building relationship, you need to know how close, that everyone wants to. We're all different. Some people want you to visit them every day. Some people want you to visit them 2 times, and depending on who the person is and the kind of relationship you have, you need to be measured. You have to be measured in everything you do. Otherwise, it becomes too much. A good thing can be evil spoken of if it's done the wrong way or in a greater amount than it should be done. You know, as a child, I was chasing after a relationship. I felt like going there to see my friend every day, and no wonder it didn't work, because I was just moving by the emotions that I had. But then, yeah, no matter how much a relationship was going to be, no matter how much I felt, there's a place where you need to know when to give distance and when to give closeness. You need to know what is too much and what is too small, and that's where your brain needs to come there. That's the importance of the brain. You don't just do things because you feel like. You have to reason it out. You have to think it out, and you have to consider the other person, right? That's important. Leaders lead from the front, yet they hold themselves in the background. You know when to be in front, when to be at the back. You are situational. You have what you call situational awareness. You know when it's important to be upfront, and you know when it's important to stay back and let the people lead themselves. You know, you have to be in control at all times, but yet you have to trust your people and be willing to relinquish, some of that control to them. Let them use their own initiative. You're not always being the one to make decisions. You let them also take their own initiative and do things. You have to be visionary, but at the same time, you have to put your feet on the ground. As much as you have wings, you also have to have roots. You know when to fly, but you also know that you don't want to fly such that you lose control. You want to be solid on the ground as well. You build consensus when there's a time to build consensus, and when that consensus is not taking the team where the team needs to go, you know where to put your foot on the ground, even though it might not be the popular decision. You know, uh, we talk about leadership being situational, and there's no leadership style that's universal. You have to be aware of the person and situation at hand and know how to adjust your leadership to fit the specific situation, right? And with the soul leadership, great leaders are flexible. Great leaders are not ones that are rigid and one-way traffic. We talked a bit on that. Uh, we talked about the Godfathers had different types of leadership. They're flexible, right? And an important thing was the results, right? They were not about being held to. They were not. They don't use their style. They are not people pleasing, as it were. They are result oriented, right? It's not about making people happy. It's about achieving the result, the intent, of the people that come under you. And they also know that leadership is relational, right? It's a business of human nature. So you have to respect the emotions of people. At the same time, you don't want those emotions to sidetrack you from what you are how to do, right? Um, so yeah, so pretty much the summary of what we did last week, and this is where we're key in today and try to finish today. And while many coaches, fix on a particular way of doing things, leadership, one of the key things that was seen in the Godfathers and the different gold mines that were visited is that they were flexible. They were flexible. That's what differentiated them. They were flexible. They were not ones that were rigid. It must be this way. One of the things that was noticed in some places that some of them were people that were not even involved in the game, right? They brought their knowledge of what they were doing to apply it in the game. They did not necessarily come from doing that same game, so they were not as it were fixated on a particular way of doing things, right? That in a sense is what I do with my farm. I'm not a farmer, I didn't come into farming here because I love farming, but I'm in it, and I'm able to then bring my knowledge of systems, my management knowledge, my engineering knowledge, to complement the farming knowledge to make it work. I'm open to those that know better than me in farming, and I'm able to bring in uh, knowledge of systems, knowledge of management, knowledge of people, to combine to make that work, you know. So flexibility in leadership means that the leader's ability to adapt, flexibility in leadership involves that you're able to adapt your procedure, your approach and style to best suit the situation, the situation, the team, and goals, rather than adhering to a rigid one size fits all, right? And there are people like that that just thinks that there's only one way to leadership, there's only one way to doing things. And you probably see some football clubs that feel like that, but you need to be able to adapt. Even if what you have been doing is good, it can get better, right? There's nothing that cannot be done better than it's always been done before. You adapt to what you have and you can make it better, with what is available to you, right? So adaptability allows for better problem solving, resource utilization, and ultimately achieving desired outcome in a dynamic environment, right? When you're able to adapt to what you have, you're able to solve problems better. You can have a better resource utilization and ultimately achieve the desired outcome in a dynamic environment. I'm going to put on my second AC here. 1 second. Apologies, I was sweating. All right. So, I mean, I'm just trying to think about, it's, the world is a dynamic place, as much as this has been learned in this gold mines is to apply to where we find ourselves, right? For me, it's the reality of what I do in the farm. We don't have as many hands as we need for all that we have to do. So we make the best of what we have. It means there's some things we can get to, we prioritize rather than spreading ourselves too thin, So we have three farmlands. We ain't getting to one right now because we only have enough hands to do two, right? And we've had to cut short the coppers that work for us, from doing some of the work. We've reduced their work or changed their work, just to suit the reality of what we have, and we're getting the results without any stress. At one point in time, running it the way we're running it was taking away my peace as a financier, as the one that's in control of the pocket. We're spending more than we're making. And that didn't make sense, and we had to readjust, re-strategize to the reality that we have. We had this incident for us where 5 out of our 6 cash cow greenhouses, were damaged by weather, and we only have one. That drastically reduces our revenue. Yet we have the same workforce. We had to adjust, to meet that reality in a way that we don't get out of the game. We don't spend more than we earn. We had to readjust, to stay, you know, within our revenue stream. We have, for us, a poultry coming on. We're going to open to get it 2 new hands. But if we don't get those new hands, we're going to have to strategize to use what we already have. But that's just an example of having to adapt to the reality you have on ground. That's here I am here. We used to do this book club, and I used to have people come in and would discuss and we'll share from different angles, but I don't have the privilege of doing that right now. So I have to readjust and re-strategize to being able to do it myself. I can't say because I don't have people here, then I'm either still going to do it, assuming there are people here, or I don't do it. It's life is about adapting to the reality that you have, right? It's and sometimes when some doors close in your life, they're probably redirection, and Ellen Kelly will put it this way, says that when a door closes, sometimes we look too long at the closed door, that will miss the open doors, because one door closing is another door opening. And I have had that, in my life, as I went into depression. 2 times I've been in depression was pretty much looking at the door that's been closed rather than looking at the doors I have remaining open. I was too focused on what I'd lost. I forgot the things I had left, and having been through those times, for me, they were a waste of time because nothing necessarily changed because I went into depression. After wasting the time in depression, I came back to meet things the way they were before I went to depression. I still had to do what I could have done without having to go into depression. Life comes with changes. Life comes with surprises. It's not to cry over spilled milk. It's not to cry over the door that's been closed. It's to make the best of what is in your hands. What is in your hands. From a relationship standpoint, as I moved away from one relationship to another, it took me years, to have the emotional readjustment. The what is gone is gone. What is what is. Make the best of what you have in your hands. Life does not move forward. That life does not progress by crying over spilled milk. It's just a waste of time, a waste of resource, a depletion of energy. Life is about making the best that you have in your hands, not what you don't have in your hands. Right? It's what you have in your hands that will get you the things that you need. What you lost, you probably don't need. And if you need it, it will come back. But you only come back if you make the best of what you have in your hands. So as we'll lead our lives and lead other people, because in leadership, we'll lead in 4 aspects, right? The first place we'll lead ourselves. Then we'll lead others. And those others include our peers, those under us, and those above us. So leadership is in 4 directions. One is inwards, 3 is outwards. 1 above, 1 below, and 1 around. And as we do that, we need to be flexible because things will change. Circumstances will change. Some of your peers will become your boss. Some of your peers will be people you'll work on that work for you. You need to be able to know how to adjust to still be effective when such things happen, right? You know, think something has changed and you don't necessarily abuse your relationship. At the same time, you have to get the job done. Your friend being your boss, you need to know how to stay close and yet stay far. Stay close enough, to respect the relationship, far enough not to take the position for granted. Again, it's that paradoxical thing whereby you're close but far. You're not bringing contempt to the position. At the same time, you're respecting your relationship. You know where the boundaries are. Your friends away from the work, but on the work, the job still needs to get done, right? So let's talk a bit more about flexible leadership here. You know, there are several aspects, or key aspects of flexible leadership. And one of it is, which we've been emphasizing, is adapting to change, adapting to the change that has occurred. Right, high performance, like we said, or leadership, as we said, is paradoxical. High performance is paradoxical. It's not the either or, all stance. It's the both at hand. It's not whether you are close or far. It's that you're close and far. Right. You need to be flexible. You don't do things without using your mind. Guess that's the problem with a lot of people. That's why they're not effective. Right. It's easy. It's probably easy not to think. So people don't think, they just judge. Right. It takes something of you to think, to reason out what to do, how to act in every circumstance, each and every circumstance. You know when to be close, when to be far. You know when to joke, you know when not to joke. You know when to be serious. You know, I I saw a time in my life, and I guess it was just a season of life. As I joke a lot, and sometimes when maturity is not put to bear, I probably joke where I should not joke, right? I probably stand it, but maturity today, it helps me to be able to know when to stop. Joking is good, humor is good, but too much of it is bad. Just like too much of anything is bad in life. There's that saying that the road to hell is paved with hard verbs, too much or too little, right? The devil is in the too much or too little. God is in the balance. Good is in the balance. Effectiveness is in the balance. Success is in the balance, right? Joking is good. Too much of it is bad. Seriousness is good. Too much of it is bad. Is to know when to do, which one to use at each point in time to get the results that needs to get done, right? So the other part, to flexible leadership is situational awareness, being aware of the situation where you find yourself. You know, maybe a good example that comes to mind, when I worked overseas and I was working for some African country, my project manager, was a doctor, brings up a doctoral, you know, doctoral prefix to our name anytime we have these meetings, because we Africans seem to respect titles, right? And she uses that well. She's from Colombia, so she understands that we Africans respect title, or maybe people from a third world, of which Colombia is one. And that works the trick. It's being aware of where you find yourself, situation where you find yourself, and what to do or not do to make a difference in that particular situation. Hey, Tony, how are you? Femi, thanks for stopping by. So it's situational awareness, and that makes a difference. because in some of those meetings, you go here and you discuss as if you're talking in an American environment. As culture is different, respecting the culture that pervade at that point in time made a difference in the success or failure of such meetings. I had to defend the budget, and and being aware of that situation meant that, it's more of the relationship, and having to use the relationship and giving the facts as they were, it was easy to accept. I wasn't delivering that expenditure. It wasn't a budget. It was money we spent, and we're there to defend. Being able to defend it in a forthright way, you know, of explaining what truly happened, it made a difference and made it easier for them to accept and approve. So it helps to, if you're leading, you have to be aware of the situation at hand, where you find yourself, the culture that pervades, the people you're dealing with, the circumstance you're dealing with, and then being able to adjust, to adjust to fit the situation will make a difference, right? Also, another aspect to flexible leadership, is what we call employee centric or people centric. You have to look at, be concerned about the people, right? It's what we call emotional intelligence, right? Emotional intelligence is being mindful of your emotion and the emotion of the people that you're relating with, and you manage it. Is what what's his name? He calls there's a word for it. It's ownership. Extreme ownership is what he calls it. You take ownership, of the emotions in the environment that you find yourself. So you are mindful of the way of what you do, of your emotion, and the emotion of the people, and how it affects them. My normal self, in my elements, in my immature self, when I talk, people probably think I'm bossy, I'm fighting them, and I've had people, happy Easter, my dear brother. Thank you, Shil. And I've had people say that because that's my voice. I have it, what you might call an evangelistic voice. When I talk, it projects. I have a voice that projects, right? I don't need a microphone to get heard, and in a closed room, that might look as if I'm fighting with the person I'm talking to, and probably it's a bit of an African thing, but being aware of myself, I have to tone that down tone them down, and bring down the emotions, so that I'm able to, I don't pass across a message that is not the intent to pass across, right? And that's taking some maturity to do, right? And again, like we say, perception is reality. It might not be the reality of what I feel towards the people I'm talking to, but whatever they perceive of me is a reality, irrespective of what it is that I'm trying to do. Like we say, that's a message that the messenger wants to pass, which is different from the message you passed, which is different from what the people heard, right? You have to own that. If you have a message to pass on, it's your responsibility to ensure that you pass the message, and the people hear the message that you're passing. You don't leave that to chance. Otherwise, you're not a communicator. Otherwise, you're not going to be an effective leader, because you could say something and it's heard another way. The people are going to do whatever it is that they heard, which might be different from what you want done, right? So you need to take ownership of your communication, of your relationship, of your engagement, right? Jokun calls that extreme ownership, and we need that, to be able to make a difference in wherever circle we find ourselves. So one of the godfathers in that place, Shetuk, says that a good coach knows that it's not about him, it's about the athlete, right? A good leader knows that it's not about him, it's about those that is leading. He needs to ensure that they get the vision, They understand what the team is after, and everybody's going to be able to pull together to achieve that, right? Colin says that you've got to be patient with people because they mature at different speeds. My job is to remain open-minded and maintain my curiosity with respect to each of my athlete. Yeah, and we're all different. If you look at your own personal life, then you understand that the people are growing. I can see myself in my career. This is my 29th year working in the oil field, directly in the oil field, upstream, right? And I've grown, but I've always been an intelligent person that's never been in doubt. But in maturity, I've not always been matured, right? I've had to grow from a maturity standpoint. And when you talk about that maturity, you're talking about emotional maturity also. I grew up a shy person, it's taken a while to get over that, and confidence in myself, all of that. So when I look at myself, it's easy to be able to relate and see myself in other people. We need to give people room to breathe, room to grow, right? We all have different things we're struggling with that no other person sees. I mean, we'll look the same, but inside we're not. There's probably a lot of noise, a lot of battles, uproar going on the inside of us, unsettlement, and sometimes we don't even understand what's going on the inside of us. Uh, Years ago, I made a decision. I guess my boss sent me to the employee assistant counselor, because he thought it was a radical decision. For me, it was uh, it- with all that was going on, I just felt it's better not to work with a particular person and keep my peace. But that meant it was a ding on my career. I pretty much dinged my own career. But for me, it was better to do that than expose myself to the toxicity that was going on around me. Right? Could I have made a different decision today? My maturity level today, I would have. My maturity level there, that was the best decision, was just to get my sanity, you know. But we need to a flexible leader understands that he's dealing with human beings, and is then able to uh, help with coaching them, helping them, to be able to rise to the occasion of life. It's not necessarily fathering or mothering them, but it gives them space to grow. It gives them space to breathe, you know, and believes the best of them. All right, I flogged that too much. Uh, another one from one of the Godfathers in those gold mine is just saying, experience has shown me that many athletes do not mature for some time, and that it's important not to shut the door on them. This means you have to be willing to invest your time and resource in something that looks rather ordinary, but which in time can flourish to become something extraordinary. Right. And I know that looking at my own life, I know that because, like I said, I've always been intelligent, but intelligence can stand in your way if you don't know how to use it. There are a lot of talented people that die empty because they don't know how to use it, because that talent stands in their way. Makes them pompous, or other things about them is not allowing that talent to come to life. So when we lead people, we help them through counsel and through coaching, um, mentoring, to be able to help them to harness the talent that they have, helping them to mature, helping them to win the battle within, so that the light, the brightness, the glory that's on the inside of them can shine forth, giving them room to grow. My farm manager gets to thank me all the time, and she's rising to the occasion, right? She's rising to the occasion, and there's a bright future ahead of her, right? She's come from her own challenges, but every day she's growing, every day she's maturing, We need to do that for everyone that works around us, even to those that are boss, those that are peers, and those that are below us, and to our own selves, right? Those are the four places of leadership, right? You're leading yourself, you're leading those that are your peers, you're leading those that work for you and those that you work for. And we need to give everyone room to breathe, room to grow, room to mature, room to actualize, right? Well, everybody's going through a battle of his own that we know not of, right? We know that of. Everybody's smiling, but they have something deep on the inside they're struggling with. They don't even know the words to use, to communicate such. But we can help one another to become the best in whatsoever angle or place we find ourselves, right? Other aspects of flexible leadership is ability to trust those you work with and give them room, to actualize, to show for themselves, you know, uh, give room to problem solving, allow your people to be able to reason out the problem. And I do that for my people, as much as I think about solution, I also give them room to think also, because as we solve the problems, everybody grows, right? And it's a place of continuous learning. We're all learning, learning and getting better, right? Everything can grow, everything can get better, you know. And so flexible leadership is about being a chameleon, right? A chameleon, which is being able to adjust to every circumstance and situation that you find yourself. It's adapting to the situation while remaining true to the core principle of effective leadership, right? Even though you are dancing to the situation, you don't lose your essential core, right? You don't lose the disciplines, you don't lose the principles, you don't lose the laws, right? Those never change, but you can adapt it to the circumstance at hand, right? Being a Christian, that probably also comes to bear. I remember the first time I used to travel. I traveled abroad. It's a different culture. You go different places, a different culture, and sometimes most of us have grown with what is cultural Christianity, not Christianity. We're putting a cultural face to it, and that hinders us, or that surprises us when we go to a different culture. But don't let me go too far on that. And that's flexibility, right? Your leadership the core doesn't change. The principles doesn't change, do not change, but you can adapt it to different culture, different scenario, different places, because their tradition is different, but the core is the same. The core is the same. When we talk about truths again, truths are the same. No two truths interfere with one another. They are always parallel, irrespective of where you find yourself. Truths trump culture, trump tradition, right? So when you stay with truth, you can apply it wherever you find yourself, right? But your dogma is not the truth. You have to be able to adjust your dogma without changing the underlying principle, without changing the underlying law, right, on which your dogma is built, right? It's so flexible leadership is about understanding that there's no one size that fits all approach, that the best leaders are those who can adjust their style to meet the specific needs of the team and the situation at hand. Yeah, situation at hand includes the culture at hand, the tradition at hand, right? You go to a place and they don't do things the same way you do it, right? You're able to then take the core, the principle, the law, and apply it, interpret it, respecting the culture that you're meeting, right? So the traits of a flexible leader include, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, again, is being able to control your emotion in such a way that you respect the emotions of the people around you. You take total ownership of your emotion and the emotion of the people you have to interact with, right? You have what Jokun will call extreme ownership. You own the emotion of the people you're interacting with because you're owning the way your own emotion is affecting them, right? That is emotional intelligence, ability to control your emotion and respect the emotion of the people you're interacting with, right? If you need that, if you're going to be a flexible leader, right? You know, you have to be self-aware. That's aware of yourself, aware of the things that are driving you, the things that your trigger points, as it were. You know, in some circumstances, you know, as I look back and I was teaching on gentleness here a few weeks ago, and I found in circumstances where I'm not gentle, it's because there's something that is not at peace on the inside of me. You know, when I win the war within, gentility becomes easy, right? So you need to be able to understand the things that trigger you one way or the other, and being able to control it, you know, so you can have the right response, the right the right result when you're relating with other people. So you're aware of yourself and how yourself then, you know, and control then the way yourself reacts with other people, right? You're aware of yourself, you're aware of other people as well, right? So it's learning agility, being able to learn fast, being able to learn, grow, you know, learning the people you're working with, the circumstance, the environment you're working in, and what are their trigger points also, right? You should not be ignorant too long. Maybe the first time you hit the rubber hits the road, and maybe you get the wrong response. Okay, but don't stay there and find out, adjust, right? Don't make excuses for your wrong, right? You should be open-minded, right? It's not just one size fits all. You know, you should have excellent communication skills and grow thereby and be strategic in thinking. That helps you to be a flexible leader, right? So let no one think that flexibility and predisposition to compromise is a sign of weakness or sellout. It's not. It's just a way of being effective, you know, in any circumstance or situation. You don't compromise on the basic principles. You don't compromise on the core of who you are. It's not a moral thing we're talking about here. It's not compromising your morals. It's just being able to work with other people. That's all. That's all we're talking about, being able to work with other people in a way that is effective and efficient, right? That's all. So in closing, a winner, you know, is a loser who has evaluated himself. So we make mistakes, but we don't stay there. We'll learn, we'll get better from that. Like I say, this year, first rain, we lost 5 of our 6 greenhouses, and those are not cheap. Each of those greenhouses are 10 million. So that was a 50 million dink, right? But we didn't stay there. We learned. We didn't give excuses. Oh, it's the rain. It happened. That's what they used to do in the olden days, right? In the olden days, they used to give excuses. Oh, it's the act of God. We know better today. Things don't just happen. Things happen because. Things happen because, right? My builder was saying, oh, it's the wind. No, no, no. Those things fell down because we did not do them well. They were not wind resistant. So we accepted the fault. I accepted the fault and decided to do it better. I didn't give way to excuses. I accepted that I did not do it well. So what did we do? We designed it better, recognize our faults, and would make the corrections to do it well. And we're doing that, right? So winner is not someone that wins all the time. It's not God. It's someone that loses sometimes, but it doesn't stay there. You learn from your lose. You lose. You learn from your failures. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a part of success. You learn and grow from from your failures to become better, and you succeed, right? It's a mindset that sorts the best from the next best. It is the ability to constantly set higher goals, to push yourself, to learn from your mistakes. You keep pushing, keep pushing. That's how you make it through it, right? We're about done with the first two rebuild, and we're going to rebuild all five and finish our plan total 12, right? We're building better, stronger, sturdier, you know. So believing in yourself costs nothing. No excuses. Believe in yourself. You can make it. Because you fell one time doesn't mean you're a failure. Fall 7 times, rise 8 times. You learn from every fall. You get better. Don't give up. Don't settle. Don't part. You can make it. You can make it. The war does not end until you win. You can lose a battle, but you learn from that battle to win the next battle. The war is what's important, not the battle. Learn from every battle so that you can win the war. Thanks. I hope you learned something from this. I hope you got something from it. That's the end of chapter 6. We're going to come back next week with chapter 7. Chapter 7 talks about parenting. You know, the title is The Need for Our Own Inputs to make our children better, to make our children fulfilled, to make our children champions. Of their own, they can make that decision. They need our inputs to do that. So we'll be talking about parenting next time we come, next Sunday, God willing. Thanks for spending this time with me. Thanks. God bless you. Enjoy the rest of today. And see you next week. Happy Easter and have a great week ahead. Bye-bye.